Well, thank you, Todd. Hello and welcome to the ATM Business Startups Coffee and Cash podcast. I'm Jay Kaplan, your host and a moderator for this group. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce two industry veterans who bring decades of experience and insight to our conversation. First, we have Maye Fuentes, who brings over 2 decades of experience in the payment space. Maye has served in executive roles, including sales and operations, for some of the country's largest ATM and payment operators. Her entrepreneurial spirit led her to M&A work, where she's become a leader in closing challenging and large-scale deals. For the past 15 years, Maye has been a tireless advocate for the ATM industry on the legislative front and currently serves as a NAC board member, industry consultant, and broker. Joining Maye is George Sarantopolous, founder and CEO of Access One Solutions, a pioneering ATM service provider operating across 36 states. George has built his career on transforming traditional cash transactions into revenue generators for businesses. His background includes studying political science at NYU and holding various corporate leadership positions. George has served as a board member and previous chairman of the National ATM Council. Beyond business, George is deeply committed to political advocacy, having managed campaigns and served as the director of communications for AD 49 District, Assemblyman Lester Cheng. Currently, George is running as a Republican candidate for New York City Council in District 47 in Brooklyn. Um, Before we get into the questions, I would like to know if Maye or George would like to add anything to my introduction, and then we can begin.
No, the only thing I'm a little sad about, it's decades. I don't know how Maya feels about it, but
Mm.
I feel a lot older.
I think we all do, especially after the last couple of years.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, that was great, Jay. And thanks for having us on today. It's really important what we're trying to cover here. You know,
We agree. All of us moderators and admins on in the group agree. It is important that we all do our part to advocate for our industry. And so I want to dive into the questions that I have.
sure.
Um, so George, let's start with you. How did you get started in politics? What motivated you to become involved in that arena? And we'd love to hear about your current campaign for the city council in Brooklyn.
Well, I started in politics. I would say lobbying, first of all, local elected and the police department here when our ATMs were starting to get hit left and right here in New York. And as Maya will probably back up here, and probably other New Yorkers, the cops weren't really doing anything. I mean, it's not an anti-police thing. Their hands were kind of tied. They would arrest these people, and they would get let go within like a day or two. So that's really how I started dipping into politics. I would say the second part came when the pandemic hit and Asian women were getting pushed off the train platforms. That's when I took my wife's Chinese, so I would tell her, "Listen, don't take the train home late at night." And things got really bad, and then me and her started volunteering on campaigns. You see, here in New York, we don't have the Democratic Party. It's not the Democratic Party that my grandfather was part of, and he was a proud union guy. We have pretty much the Democratic Socialists of America have taken over the local party and turned it into a very far left party. So they're very easy breezy on criminals. And there's all kinds of laws that they pass to let criminals, I mean, pretty much anyone who's been here and works in New York will tell you, yes, my machines got popped. They arrested the guy, and then the guy got like loose within a day or two, or they didn't really prosecute him. They didn't throw the book at him. So the the law started affecting my family personally. So that's how I started volunteering for campaigns. And I volunteered for a state senate run. I was a volunteer, and by the end of the campaign, I was running the volunteers out there, me and my wife. And I said the third part came when I got diagnosed with cancer about 2.5 years ago. They were giving me a 90% chance that I wasn't going to make it past 5 years. And by some miracle, my MRI came up clean about a year ago. And then another MRI came up clean again. And I said, well, I relaxed a little bit, but I want to give back. I want to do something. I want to do something meaningful. I mean, I believe God doesn't keep us around for a bigger profit margin or a bigger house or a nice car. So I want to do some good in the world. I know
You need to take the shot. Right?
I'll ask everybody else on this call to please mute themselves. George, thanks. Maya, my next question is for you. You've been advocating for the ATM industry for 15 years now. Why should ATM operators be involved in politics? Could you explain how legislation at the local level can impact ATM operations?
Sure. And I think, Jay, you can chime in. George certainly can too on this particular question. But just last year, for example, we caught wind of a bill in New York that was gaining a lot of traction and momentum around surcharge cap on ATMs. And the surcharge cap that was proposed would have put a lot of us in a very dire financial situation. Certainly some of the smaller players just completely out of business. And there was really nothing opposing that bill until we caught it. So just a very recent and very important example. And I think, and George, if you want to kind of jump into why New York especially is important for what the rest of the country does from a bill perspective.
Well, I believe New York is the leader just because we're the biggest city in the country. So if legislation makes it through the either the state level or the city level, you're going to see other cities and states copy it very quickly. Especially if it brings in a lot of revenue, additional tax, and additional if it's popular. I mean, the surcharge with the consumer, of course, would be popular, but would destroy our industry.
Exactly.
So it's important, even on the local level, to have councilmen or whatever your local positions are, to have people that are in the industry or know the industry, all the way to the state house, all the way to Congress. So my feeling is there's an opportunity here in my campaign, obviously, to do good in this district and make a difference and make sure the trash gets collected and the cops are on the street, but also for our industry to have a voice in the New York City Council, which is full of lunatics. There's a lot of far left people there. Again, the Democratic Party of my grandfather and maybe some of the people on this call, this is a very far left agenda that's being driven here.
I think that the issues surrounding our industry are completely bipartisan, no matter what side of the aisle you fall on. The way that they impact us specifically as small businesses and larger businesses, it's something everyone can get behind, right? So the pieces of legislation that I work with NAC and also ATMIA has got on board too, really pushes this forward. And it's a very small group. And Jay, I say this all the time to everyone, and people get sick of hearing me say it, but if you're not involved, then when something does happen, it's too late to go back and try to fix it at that point, right? So the pushing of these bills, at least I would super encourage people to be involved and at least be educated in what they are, and put some support behind it. Where it's possible, right? Just make a phone call, and certainly you can reach out to me, you can reach out to George, you can reach out to Bruce Renard from NAC, and we will help kind of teach you how to advocate a little bit, but it is not hard, and it really takes 5 minutes of your time in some cases.
Can I jump in here a little bit? I would just say to our members here, to the followers on here, the listeners on here, that you shouldn't be intimidated by your local electeds. They work for you. So you shouldn't hesitate to call them up and tell them exactly how you feel about some legislation. I know some of our people in the ATM industry, they're like, hey, I operate a small route, 10, 20 machines. I don't really have time. but within a moment's notice, they could put you out of business.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you an example locally, two laws or two things that really affected the industry. Number one, there was a lot of people that had put ATMs outdoors in all over the city. Now, I would say the established players didn't want that. But there was a lot of these new guys that are in the industry that were putting machines outdoors, and the city council banned them. So they made it illegal. So I'm sure they put a lot of people out of business or adversely affected people's business in a big way. I would say the second thing that was a big thing here in New York is bail reform that passed in Albany. That allowed where if you get arrested for busting into an ATM, you can be out within 24 hours. You don't even need to put up bail. So what does that mean? That means these crews that get arrested every once in a while here in New York, when they get arrested, they're out on the street within 24 hours. And I assure you, they're not going to go work at McDonald's or Starbucks and all of a sudden go on the straight and narrow. They need a lawyer to pay. They're going to go rob. They're going to go rob another ATM or whatnot. So these are two things just here locally here in New York City, and there's a lot of operators here in New York City where this is adversely affecting, our industry. Just to give you an example, I don't know if Maya wants to jump in there a little bit about that.
Well, I think we've thrown Jay's kind of agenda off. So let's move on to the next question.
Yeah, sorry about
Circle
that.
back around.
We've covered some good ground here.
Yeah.
So George, this point about larger companies, we know the larger companies often have significant lobbying power. How can this lobbying by the big guys perhaps adversely affect smaller operators? What does the future look like if big business gets in the way? Or gets its way, excuse me.
And obviously Maya will jump in here a little bit too. I mean, I'm a little guy in the grand scheme of things. She's worked for the big guys, but
To be fair, George and I met because he was suing us. So we didn't have the best start to our relationship.
That is some start.
Exactly.
Well, to be clear, I wasn't suing you, Maya. Somebody was suing you guys because I was working with you guys or something like that.
Right.
And Maya had to go dig through hundreds of files, which I'm sure she hated me for the first couple of years after that.
Correct.
By the way, side note, I am proud to have been on this podcast with two strong ATM women. My wife, first of all, I got to say that first, Maya. And
Shout out to Heidi.
Here, who's who's a very strong woman in our industry. So I'm pretty proud of that,
Thank you.
But that being said, these guys, the big guys, can pass laws that would make it very burdensome. They can make laws where the licensing fees go up. They can, just on a local level, they can make it, Massachusetts, for example, I'm going to give you an example. Their paperwork is akin to alchemy. I mean, it's really out there. My wife's very good on paperwork. She's a partner in my business. And she said, wow, that this paperwork, and you don't even know what they're going to assess on you. It's very out there as in terms of paperwork. So, and a lot of my guys who work up there ask for help with that paperwork, but I don't think they would have been able to do it on their own, some of them. So my point being is they can make it very, very difficult to be in the ATM industry very easily. I guess Maya wants to jump in here, maybe.
Yeah. So I do think that while the larger companies do advocate for their own interests, a lot of times those do align with the smaller business in our space. All the time, no, but that's why it's important to get together. And certainly as independents, this group holds not just the Facebook group, which is amazing because it brings together people, very small groups of ATM operators in a way that we haven't been able to really capture before, right? So that's amazing. But I think that if all of the independents band together and really start a strong collective front, legislatively and otherwise, we certainly have a lot more of a voice than some of these bigger operators, right? What the more corporate bigger operators do have is money. And that's something that we're certainly lacking from the independents, which is why organizations like NAC are important, to support them monetarily and get behind the efforts and really get involved in NAC, right? I sometimes see some comments on different posts in the groups, in the various Facebook groups, that are like, well, someone else is taking care of it, or why isn't NAC doing something, or why isn't ATMIA doing something? And if you're asking that question, you should also ask, what are you doing, right? How can you get involved? Because it's your business too, and you should be advocating for your small business. So
Yeah, and I would say this Facebook group, guys, this was great that you guys put this together, and it's a great way for you guys to keep the conversation going with each other year round, obviously. And coming out to support NAC is very important because of all the great advocacy work that's going on in Washington, and sometimes even on a local level.
mhm.
So it comes to the kind of a next question, which is for both you, George and Maya, how can operators get involved on local and national levels? What are some concrete steps they can take?
Well, I would say, look, you need to introduce yourself to your local electeds, to go to events once in a while, there's many times there's small fundraisers where you can go for dinner for $100, $50, $150. Get some FaceTime with that local elected, whether it's a congressional member, whether it's an assembly member, whether it's a state senator, or whether it's a councilman or the mayor, whatever of your city or town, and get some FaceTime and tell them, listen, what you do, explain to them what you do, how many people you employ, very important, and also who benefits. Many, let's say, for example, you have an ISO, a small ISO, and you have hundreds of machines in grocery stores in your town or county or neighborhood, or and you let them know, like, listen, there's hundreds of stores that profit from my ATM business, that I help them pay the rent, or I help them make an additional income. Most of these electeds have no idea about this business.
Right.
So, give them a elevator pitch, 5 minutes. Don't bore them to death with all the details, but just something to get them like, oh, okay, I guess this is because most electeds, that I've talked to and I've also worked for are stupid. I'm going to just say that outright. A lot of them don't really know what's going on. They're not very business savvy. And maybe I'm being a little harsh, but a lot of them are not business owners or business savvy. They've been in the nonprofit world, or they've worked for other electeds. Some of them even gone from straight college to work for an elected and then go get elected themselves. So a lot of them don't know much about business, or how and specifically how this industry works. So give them an elevator pitch. Tell them a little bit about your business. Tell them how many people you employ. Tell them how important it is, how many local businesses you support. They're going to be shocked because they're under the impression even to this day, a lot of them believe that the ATMs are owned by banks.
Correct. Which is why, again, the New York bill, and there was a Texas bill similarly about circular caps, and why those things are so important. Once we started getting in, and Jay, you know this, and started to really talk to them, they had no idea, first of all, that we provide a valuable service to the unbanked and underbanked community in just being able to access their cash. And B, that then supports those small businesses where our ATMs are placed. They have no idea. They don't look at it that way, and they think, this is about Wells Fargo and Bank of America charging too much to the consumer. So they don't realize the impact it has on multiple small businesses. It's a ripple effect throughout the community. If we were to cease operations in some of those areas where there are no banks.
By the way, part of my district is Coney Island, and there's very few banks down there. I mean, the ATM, just walking around down there and getting to know the neighborhoods a lot better. There's very few banks down there. There's a Chase branch, maybe a Citibank branch, just off the top of my head, and you're talking maybe 40, 50,000 people down in the whole part of Coney Island. So if it wasn't for the ATM industry, there wouldn't be cash access down there at all. So it's something you have to make people aware of. And believe me, the local councilman who's in there now, I've let him know a lot about the ATM industry, and he had no idea.
Wow. I wouldn't think of Coney Island being a cash desert, but
I mean, obviously, down by the amusement, there's a lot of our operators are maxing out their surcharges. God bless them. But I'm just talking about the people that live in Coney Island. There's a big community there that live there, and if it wasn't for the ATM industry, there wouldn't be much cash access down there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, kind of what you can do to get involved, I would say, George, you're running for the New York City Council seat, and you're going to bring your perspective as operating an ATM business to that. And so I think one thing that people can do is basically, support your run for the seat. We always want to have advocates for our industry in political leadership positions. And so I do think it's important. I will mention that there is a comment on the post about this coffin cash for George's run for the council seat. I would encourage people to go visit that website. And
Fun
see what,
fact, fun
go ahead.
fact, I just want to jump in here. If you live in New York City and you donate to me, you don't have to donate much, but if you donate $25 or $50 or $100, that $100 becomes $900 because they give you a matching 8-to-1. So don't think you have to donate a lot. If you want to donate $25, it becomes $200. If you donate 500, I get an additional. If you donate, I'm sorry, if you donate $50, it becomes an additional. It just magnifies the money. So $100 easily becomes $900. So you don't have to give much to help finance my campaign. And obviously, I'll be the voice for our industry and the vending guys, and because I know the business pretty well.
And we did lose an important and strong advocate in New York. She's not running again. And in the 15, 20-ish years that I've been really working on the legislative side, it's always super important to have people at local and obviously national levels too, that we've educated and brought up to speed on the industry and the things that are happening and how they impact us, right? Because then it is much easier to go to them when some of these things happen so that they can then start to educate their colleagues and their staffers around our space and our business, right? So that's why, again, this is for me a nonpartisan issue in that regardless of your leanings, the industry is what we're talking about here, and that's what's important. So, and I can get into some of the pieces of legislation we're working on, Jay, if you want, with NAC right now, at the national level, because I think it's super important for people to understand where those bills are and how they can help
Yeah,
too.
please go ahead if you could give that a brief overview.
Yep. So we have 3 active pieces of legislation right now, and some of these you've heard before, but we've got the Safe Access to Cash bill, which is essentially treating retail ATM crime the same as a financial institution ATM. Most people aren't even aware that those two are treated differently. You guys are all very aware of it based on the fact that those criminals just aren't prosecuted or punished, or sometimes even found, frankly. Just because there's a lack of the police's hands are tied in many cases. So we've got some strong support, and we're really looking for a Democratic co-sponsor in the Senate. So, and it's very surprising how many people do have access to people in legislative positions, right? So maybe your aunt or your brother or someone, a coworker knows someone in one of their offices. Even if they don't, contact your official and let them know, like George said, I run a small business. This is the impact it has. And again, feel free to reach out to NAC, to Bruce, to me, to George. George is busy with his campaign, so he probably doesn't appreciate that. But we can help you craft the message if you want, around, you know, a quick little 2-minute blurb to call and say, this is how this impacts us. And that the Safe Access to Cash Act is super important for us across the country, as we've seen just a huge crime in around, and especially with the cybercrime. I hate to bring it up. It's a sensitive topic right now for us in our space, but it's important that the electeds understand that that's going on and how we can prevent it, right? So,
Just the cybercrime, by the way, relies on a local level, usually mules to go run and go get the money. So
right.
still, there's still even though it might be, let's say, you know, directed from who the hell knows, Bulgaria, Romania, Russia, whatever the hell, there's still local level prosecutions that can happen with the mules that go hit these machines, you know, because they know what they're doing. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to the ATM to test it for this nameless person online. No, they know what they're doing, and you know, there needs to be prosecution at a local level too.
Right. And we've got Senator Cruz on the Republican side as a sponsor. Again, we do need a Democratic co-sponsor on that bill. And Mr. Ivy, who was a strong advocate for us, is now on the appropriations committee. And we really hope to get this bill in the appropriations committee in a larger inside of a larger bill. That's how most of these work, right? So that that can get passed along. So that's one that all of you should kind of have on your radar and really be calling about to support safe access to cash. The Payments Choice Act was reintroduced as well. This is the third time we've introduced the Payments Choice Act. And essentially what that does is requires all businesses to accept cash at some level. As you guys all know, that's one of the biggest things impacting us for the last several years is a lot of places, especially in the mobile event world, are going away from cash entirely, right? And so this is the third time I believe it's been introduced. And some of these bills get introduced 5, 6, 7, 8 times before they get momentum and traction, depending on, you know, how they need to be massaged so that they can move past committee and get voted on. So again, with having advocates like NAC working on these bills, they can continue to get reintroduced and with better chances of being passed, right? And Mr. Rose has been a real strong advocate for us from Tennessee, thankfully, in the payment space, and he's working still on that too. And then the next one is something that impacts all of you and has at one point touched you, and I hope, and if it hasn't, I hope it doesn't. But the fair access to banking is around the anti-debanking of kind of risky businesses, right? Which a lot of banks consider still ATM from a compliance side, that sort of high risk business. And we've been able to introduce the bill that also includes crypto, and many of you are involved or had been involved in crypto and BTMs as well. So that's super important for the long-term longevity of our whole space, right? Because I've heard horror stories of people, you know, getting notices. You've got 30 days or 2 weeks or 5 days to get new banking up and running because compliance at the bank that they've worked with for 20 years is pulling their bank accounts. So that is a huge one. We're working with Chairman Scott, who's the senator in the banking committee. And we did something interesting and unique in this, where there was a phone number to call in to kind of like a hotline. And I hope some of you called in to explain your situation and horror stories of losing your banking relationships. And we were able to get that put into record. We compiled all that, and NAC was able to get that put into record, which should help to continue to push that fair access to banking bill forward. Those are the 3 pieces of legislation that we're currently working on. Again, contact me or contact Bruce at NAC for more information there. One other thing, and I know you guys sometimes get bored of legislation, but it is important. There is going to be at the NAC show later this year, the lead counsel on the antitrust case that's been 15 years in the making. It was actually filed in 2011. We've made significant progress on that case. And we want to make sure, if you don't know about it, reach out. Certainly everyone that's an ATM operator should be aware of it because they will be entitled to compensation. I sound like a I sound like a personal injury attorney, but it has made a lot. We have made a lot of progress, and thanks to Bruce and Susan Renard and the team for tirelessly pushing this for so many years. Many people are not even aware of it, but it has come a long way, and it's to a really good spot now. And more on that at the next show. Last thing is that we do have the Washington fly-in for NAC in mid-July, and we'll have more information. I'll post that on the group in the next couple of days here. But it's important. We welcome everyone to join us for that. It is a great experience to go and meet with elected officials and really, again, bring advocacy to our industry and to this group. So more info to follow on that, but we would love to have people join us.
I just want to remind everyone on here and that will listen to this podcast going forward that we have a pretty good business. I mean, this is, we get to make our own hours to a large extent. We got a lot of freedom. We get to talk to small business owners with a lot of positive energy. We're providing a service in a lot of neighborhoods where we're the only game in town. I mean, it's a pretty good business, and we should feel good about it. But we have to protect it. We have to get involved. We have to speak up for ourselves. So whether it means, hey, coming to NAC or making a donation to a local elected and going to a dinner and letting him know how you feel because he's thinking about some crazy ATM bill or coming out to the fly out, all those things are important to protect this great industry that's treated us well and to keep it going.
Absolutely.
And talk about advocacy. We are going to want to open up like the floor to questions, but before that, perhaps Bruce would like to say something about advocacy. Bruce, do you want to say something?
Thank you, Jay. Let me thank you and the Facebook group here for hosting this session with Maya and George, and to thank Maya and George for doing such a great job here in presenting. Needless to say, getting George on the city council in New York would be a fantastic move for our industry. New York City was one of the, thank you, George. Thank you for running.
Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, but the I guess what I'd like to remind everyone is New York City was the first really major city in the country to adopt cash legislation similar to the federal bill we're trying to get right now introduced in the Senate. We've got it in the House already. But getting stuff done at the city level like George can do will really mean a lot to the industry. The fact that it is New York, it's a bellwether location. So everyone here, get out the checkbook if you can and make whatever donation you can. And let's see if we can help George secure this position for the industry. And thank you, George, for your ongoing service to our industry. Maya has laid it out really well. We've got some very important issues that can really help the industry a lot and help all of those on the Facebook group here going forward with the business. So please become involved. Join NAC if you haven't already, please. It's not very expensive, especially for small operators. Become a NAC member if you can. Whether or not you're a NAC member, you can help yourself and us by reaching out to everyone here has a congressperson they can reach out to. And what we want is to get every congressperson we can to become a co-sponsor right now for the Safe Access to Cash Act. Okay, that bill has a good chance of passing. No reason we shouldn't be able to pass it, but getting the grassroots support that you all can help us get will really make a difference. And if you have any interest in helping us, just reach out to Maya or myself. We'll be happy to, help you know who to contact, how to contact, what to do. It won't take a lot of time of yours. And it'll be a great thing for you as well to make that contact. It'll open up some business opportunities inevitably for you. So you can help us help you, and we need your help. You can really get involved by coming to DC with us. We do a fly-in where we get 50, 60 or more operators from all over the country to come in, and we have dozens of meetings on Capitol Hill talking about our issues, letting them hear all this stuff firsthand. And it's a great time to, mix and mingle with other operators from around the country and to just be part of a great thing on Capitol Hill for ATM Nation. And that'll be in the week of July 14th. We'll be issuing the formal exact dates very quickly here. And then lastly, if you can't do any of that, at least come to the conference. We're going to be at Caesar's Palace at the end of September. I'm very sorry that it happens to fall at the end of the month and the beginning of the month. And believe me, we're very aware of the problems that can create. And unfortunately, the conference committee just had to take the deal because it's so tough to just get any space now that meets all of our requirements. The good news here is that we have a 3-year deal in place now with Caesars Entertainment. And after this year, we're going to be away from the beginning or the end of the month. So don't let the timing dissuade you from coming to our show this year. Please be with us. It's going to be an awesome event. And we're going to have Congressman Fitzgerald with us as a keynote speaker. He is our prime sponsor now in the House on the Safe Access to Cash Act. So you can be there, hear him live, as well as hear from the lead counsel in the antitrust case, which is really getting to a great place now, as Maya was sharing with you. So thank you, to all the administrators here and all the folks on this Facebook group for being part of our industry. And we hope you'll become part of NAC and help us really lift the tide for all boats in the ATM world. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Bruce. With that, I'd like to open up this meeting to all the participants who might have questions to ask George or Maya or Bruce. So you're muted now but please ask to unmute if you wanted to go and ask some questions, but we're opening that up for questions now. Does anybody have any questions?
Jay, if you don't mind, I'll start. George, could you tell us a little bit about how the New York politics, for people that aren't familiar with it? I know there's borough presidents, there's city council. The position that you're running for, where does that fit into the alphabet soup of the New York politics?
So, so just to tell you a little bit about how the city is run, the mayor of the city of New York is probably one of the most powerful executives in the country. It's up there with most of the governors in terms of what he can't and can't do. So it's a very powerful position. And then underneath him is the city council, and there's about 51 members there. There's about 8 or 10 members on the Common Sense Caucus that are basically Republicans and moderate Democrats. And then there's some Democrats, and then there's about 25 or 20 far left members of the city council that are also endorsed by the Working Families Party and the Democratic Socialists of America. So they're very far left, and they come up with all kinds of very, very crazy ideas that are not, how do we say it? They're not favorable towards small businesses, whether it's the ATM industry or restaurants or dry cleaners. They're always coming up with new laws to try to make it difficult to operate here in New York, no matter what business you're in. This is not, again, I can't stress it enough. It's not the Democratic Party that is in other parts of the country. It's pretty out there. So it's not even a partisan thing. It's So there's really three parties in New York City, if you really think about it. There's the Republicans, there's Democrats, and then there's the far left. And that's really how it breaks down here in the city.
George,
As a city councilman, I would represent about 161,000 people. I'm almost like a mini mayor. I have a big discretionary budget. I have probably a big staff that will maintain constituent services. So it's a big responsibility. I can't stress it enough. It sounds, councilman sounds like a small job, but it's a really important job here in New York. And it really affects the quality of life in your district because they have a lot of say in zoning, how, that the trash gets picked up, that there's enough cops on the district, that even if the district is clean or not, you can tell based on the councilman or councilwoman and how they operate.
How many people are you in a race against, and what does that look
So
like?
I have a primary, Republican primary that most people think I can do good in. If I win the primary, people really think I have a good shot to win the general election in November. That's
When is that primary?
that primary is June 24th, and
Okay.
we have early voting ridiculously for 9 days. So if you can't make it June 24th, you can vote from June 14th to June 22nd. Now you have to live in the neighborhoods that I represent to vote for me. So that's let me just go over it really quick. It's Bay Ridge, Coney Island, Seagate, Bath Beach, and a little bit of Diker Heights. But that's my district. But it's like I said, it's a pretty big district. 161,000 people living in it.
And just to be clear though, whether or not you live in his district, he certainly can be an advocate for the entire industry nationwide based on, bills that are being passed or trying to be passed in New York.
Yeah, the bills are citywide. So if somebody decides, hey, I want to ban ATM surcharging, I can definitely work to block it or vote against it. Because hey, I've been in the industry. I know what it means to be an ATM operator or a vending operator. So I can definitely be a voice in the city council for our industry.
We're happy to take other questions. Go ahead, Todd.
Did you have a follow-up?
That's the only question I had. And I just wanted to, Bruce, thank you for acknowledging the first of the month piece. I know that has come to me quite a few times, and it is unfortunate that MAC is this year, but like you said, subsequent years, and you've heard the message, I assume, and thank you for acknowledging that, because I've definitely heard the message.
Absolutely, Ton. And I guess to encourage people that we are starting the show midday on Tuesday and ending at midday Thursday. So even though it's, right there at the end and start of the month, hopefully that helps a little bit to give people an opportunity to load before they go and then be able to get back and, reload in time. So hopefully, but the main thing is for people to know we really do everything we can to keep it away from the beginning or the end of the month. And we've done a really good job over the years of doing that. And also to have it be in the middle of the week as opposed to near the weekend. But, for this year, this was really the only viable option for us. And everything else about the property, the pricing, the whole thing at Caesar's Palace is wonderful. So hopefully folks can juggle things and figure out a way to be with us and not miss.
Thank you.
So again, does anybody else here want to pose any questions to George or Maya or Bruce? if we don't have any more questions, I guess I would like to ask for final thoughts from George and Maya.
George,
Uh,
go
why
first.
don't you go first, and then I'll close out.
I think I do think it's important, and when I speak to people, especially small operators, it's important to really start to think about the future of the industry, right? We've been through some pretty huge changes, and the last 18 months have brought some collapses of not one, but a couple of major ATM players in the space, coupled with crime and rising cash costs. It's been an extremely difficult and volatile period for all of us in the space, right? So I think that it's really important for our small business owners to start thinking outside of the box. And what is the future of ATM? And for a lot of us, it is around more kind of multifunction kiosk type models where retailers can get more bang for their buck, right? And so can consumers, for that matter. And there's been some good significant progress around toppers, video ads, although we've tried those for years. Finally, people are starting to make money in some of those arenas, and that's been super helpful. And people are branching out a lot more into credit card and other things. So I think as ATM operators, it's important to be aware of those other ancillary industries and really embrace some of those technologies. You have the real estate in your control, right? You have the merchant already. So if you can sell into them for other products, this is a very, very important time to do it. And because of those challenges that we've faced in the last 18-24 months, cyber attacks, et cetera, it is important to note that regulatory efforts will be underway that can negatively impact us. So it's just such a hugely important time to get involved in this space, because unfortunately we have gotten the attention, not in a positive way, of some of the regulatory bodies.
Thank you, Maya. George.
Well, I'll be brief, but here's a chance for our industry to have one of our own as an elected somewhere, where I will have a big megaphone and I can make a big difference. New York City is a big stage, and anything out there that I can bring in some positive attention to our business and protect our business from crazy laws and the criminals and out there, I will advocate for our industry and be a voice for our industry. So I ask that people come out, support me. Like I said, if you live in the city or live across the country, even a small donation helps, a small contribution. Campaigns unfortunately require money. So I hate to be the one with hat in hand here, but I do have to ask. And if you want to read more about me, I would say check out my website, georgeforchangenyc.com. It's georgeforchangenyc.com. And you can read up about me and some of the programs that I'm promoting. And I believe I can be a positive voice for our business and all small business owners. Like I was looking through the city council um, resumes, and there's not much in the way of small business owners on the city council presently. So anything I can do to come in there and advocate, not just for our industry, but for small business, would be heard around the country for sure.
So important.
Thank you, George. Bruce, do you have any final words you might want to say before we end the meeting?
I would just say vote for George. And if you can't vote for George, send George a check so, so that we can get him in there. And he really, I mean, you know what a great voice he will be for our industry, and what a great step forward that'll be for us. So please do that, and please try to be with us in DC and Vegas this year to make a difference with us. And thank you again to the Facebook group here for having us and, doing what you're doing for the industry right now. It's awesome.
Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah, we thought as the admins and moderators, it was important to have an advocate for our industry in New York City and have advocates at all government levels. And that's why we wanted to have this coffee and cash today. So we certainly appreciate the time, George, that you have spent, that Maye has spent on this call, as well as Bruce and everybody else who has attended. I think it's been a great session, very informative. We also have that link for George's website in as a comment on the post about this call. I encourage everybody to visit the website. And again, thank everybody for participating. It's been a great event. So thank you all.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you all so much for having us.
Thanks, guys, and I'll get the video of this this episode up later tonight.
Great.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Mark.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks,
Bye.
Todd.
All right.
Take care.
Thank
Take care,
you.
guys.